Every coin tells a story. Some whisper tales of everyday trade in bustling markets, while others carry the weight of history, silent witnesses to changing nations, forgotten myths, and the passage of time. The 1882 half-dollar, part of the long-running Seeded Liberty series, is one such coin, born in an era of rapid transformation in America. This piece of silver has become the subject of legends, collector obsessions, and auction room surprises. But what makes this coin so fascinating? Was it really the coin of gamblers in the Wild West saloons? Did outlaws like Jesse James ever carry it in their pockets? Why do myths cling so tightly to its history? And how much are collectors willing to pay today for a coin struck in 1882? Today, we'll dive deep into the engaging history, myths, varieties, and modern auction worth of the 1882 half-dollar, a coin that continues to captivate collectors nearly a century and a half after it was struck. To understand the coin, we must first step into the year 1882. The United States was still healing from the scars of the Civil War, which had ended less than 2 decades earlier. Reconstruction was winding down, and the country was moving into the Gilded Age, a time of rapid industrialization, booming railroads, and stark contrasts between wealth and poverty. In 1882, a Chester A. Arthur was president. A Jesse James, the infamous outlaw, met his end, gunned down in Missouri. The railroads were knitting together America's economy, and towns were springing up across the West. Silver was plentiful, thanks to discoveries like the Comstock lode in Nevada. It was a fascinating paradox. America was modernizing quickly, yet in many ways, life was still rough and frontier-like. The half-dollar, worth 50 cents, carried real weight. It wasn't just pocket change. It could buy a full meal, a decent bottle of whiskey, or even a train ticket for short distances. Against this backdrop, the Seeded Liberty half-dollar of 1882 came into circulation. The Seeded Liberty half-dollar was one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage, spanning from 1839 to 1891. It was designed by Christian Gobrecht, the third chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, whose artistry left a permanent mark on American coins. On the obverse, front, of the coin, a liberty is seated on a rock, holding a shield with one hand and a staff with a liberty cap in the other, as she is both guardian and symbol of freedom, embodying the American ideal. On the reverse, back, an eagle spreads its wings proudly, clutching arrows and an olive branch, the dual message of peace and strength. Over the decades, the design saw small changes. Stars were adjusted, arrows were added and removed, mottos came and went. By 1882, the version struck included the motto, "In God We Trust," which had been added after the Civil War. The artistry was symbolic, but it was also practical. These were everyday workhorses of commerce, struck in solid 90% silver and 10% copper, weighing 12.5 grams, and with a diameter of 30.6 millimeters. When held in hand, they felt substantial, a coin that truly had presence. In 1882, the U.S. Mint was producing coins at multiple locations. A Philadelphia, no Mintmark. A Carson City, CC. A San Francisco, S. In New Orleans, O. Each mint gave its 1882 half-dollar a subtle identity, marked by a small letter below the eagle on the reverse. The Philadelphia Mint struck the largest number, with no mint mark. The Carson City Mint, nestled in Nevada near the silver mines, produced fewer, making CC coins particularly desirable today. A San Francisco, serving the booming West Coast, struck sturdy coins that circulated heavily. And in New Orleans, coins were made for the South, with their own stories of circulation, in riverboat economies and post-Reconstruction trade. Each mintmark tells its own regional tale of how the half-dollar traveled through America. Now comes the fun part, the myths that surround the 1882 half-dollar. One persistent tale claims that Jesse James himself carried 1882 half-dollars during his outlaw days. While it's true that coins of this type circulated widely in the West, the timeline doesn't quite match. Jesse James was killed in 1882, and many of these coins were only struck that year. But legends are rarely concerned with details, and the association has stuck, making these coins a favorite among Wild West enthusiasts. Another myth suggests that half-dollar Dollars were the coin of choice in gambling halls and saloons, used in poker games and slot machines. There is truth here. The coin size and silver content made it perfect for betting, and many 1882 half dollars likely passed across green felt tables. Some myths even go so far as to say that the Carson city issues were smuggled straight from the mint to underground casinos, though there's little hard evidence to back that claim. What's fascinating is how these myths add color to the coin's legacy, blending history with folklore in a way that makes collectors even more intrigued. By 1882, the seated Liberty design had been in use for over 4 decades. Critics were beginning to call it outdated. Artists and mint officials debated about a fresh design. Within a decade, in 1892, the seated Liberty would be replaced by the Barber half dollar, designed by Charles E. Barber. This makes the 1882 issues part of the final chapter of seated Liberty coinage. Collectors today often see them as closing act pieces, representatives of a design nearing its retirement, yet still steeped in history. For collectors, varieties matter. The 1882 half dollar comes with a few key distinctions. A Philadelphia, no mint mark, common compared to others. A San Francisco, S, popular with collectors of Western coinage. A New Orleans, O, scarcer than Philadelphia, with unique Southern history. A Carson City, CC, the crown jewel of 1882 half dollars. With low mintages, CC coins are highly sought after, especially in higher grades. Carson City coins in particular fuel myths of miners, outlaws, and frontier trade. Owning one feels like holding a piece of Old West history. Every great coin has its stories of discovery. In the mid-20th century, the Treasury released silver dollars from its vaults, sparking a collecting craze. Though half dollars weren't hoarded in the same way, a few pocket hoards of seated Liberty halves have surfaced over the years, sometimes tucked away in old cigar boxes, discovered by grandchildren cleaning out attics. One particularly fascinating tale tells of a Carson City 1882 half dollar found in a Nevada saloon's floorboards during renovation. Whether true or not, such stories add mystique to the collector's market. So, how much is the 1882 half dollar worth today? Like all coins, it depends on condition, mint mark, and rarity. A worn examples, good to fine condition $40 to $100. A higher grades, extremely fine to about uncirculated, $200 to $600. A mint state, uncirculated thousands of dollars, especially for rarer mint marks. Auction houses have seen some incredible sales. An 1882 cc half dollar in MS65 condition has sold for over $10,000. Even lower grade Carson City coins fetch strong premiums, simply because of their scarcity. Meanwhile, Philadelphia coins remain more affordable for beginner collectors, offering an accessible way into 19th century US silver. The 1882 half dollar is more than just silver and mint marks. It's a tangible piece of America's past. It connects us to the Gilded Age, the Wild West, and the final decades of the seated Liberty design. It carries myths of gamblers, outlaws, and pioneers, stories that may not always be factual, but that enrich its cultural significance. And today, whether in dusty attics, collectors' albums, or high-stakes auction houses, the 1882 half dollar continues to inspire fascination. The next time you see one, remember, it's not just a coin. It's a legend in silver, a survivor from 1882, a witness to history, and a prized treasure in the world of numismatics. Thank you for joining us on this journey through myths, history, and the enduring legacy of the 1882 half dollar.